Hey guys, and welcome to Money Talks News, the podcast that makes you richer one day at a time. You know, last year, NerdWallet survey found that 84% of Americans with a monthly budget spend beyond it. What the heck's going on? If you got a budget, shouldn't that help you stay on track? Maybe it's less about creating a budget and more about understanding your cash flow, or in other words, how money moves through your personal economy. I'm your host, Stacey Johnson. Also, here's our co-host, Miranda Marquardt. Hello, Miranda.
Hello, Stacey. I am ready to find out where I've gone wrong.
Well, this is not going to be that long of a podcast, Miranda. Also with us is our brilliant producer and sometimes contributor, Aaron Freeman. Hola, Aaron.
Hey, how you guys doing? Hello, Jason. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and we've got Jason Vita with us today. He's back to talk about his six-step system, easy for you to say, for better moving your money. You can find his system in his latest book, Make Your Money Smile. I want more than that, Jason. I want my money to laugh out loud. Can you do that?
Yeah, we could try.
Okay. Well, welcome back to the show. And so what is the difference between managing cash flow and just having a budget? Aren't they basically the same thing?
They're pretty much the same thing, but budgeting is actually the part of the process of managing your cash flow. And I think most people think of budgets as a one and done deal. And when you're looking at managing your cash flow, you are looking at the actions and the behaviors that you're taking on a daily basis in terms of how you're saving, how you're spending, and how you are kind of reaching those specific goals and maintaining that budget. I think that's one of the key differences.
Would you do me a favor and give me an example? Because I'm getting a little lost here. It's a little fuzzy to me. So a budget, give me an example of budget and give me an example of how managing cash flow is different.
Yeah. So for instance, the vast majority of people, when they go and they tell me that they're in a budget, one, they're actually doing like budget with their like mental accounting. They're going, okay, I'm living off of a budget. I can't spend X amount. And the other group of people, what they do is that they will sit down, create a budget. They'll do it in a spreadsheet. They'll use an app. They will do pen to paper, and they will forget all about it until one day they realize they don't have enough money. So a budget really just becomes like this template. And the managing cash flow aspect of it is more of the mindset and understanding how money is flowing in and out using that budget.
I think an important thing to remember about a budget as well versus cash flow is, Jason talked about how it's moving through your personal economy. It's not just about the actions you're taking. It's also about timing and knowing, okay, I'm going to get paid on this day and this is when my bills are coming out. So for me in the past, one of the biggest issues that I have had with managing my own cash flow has been setting up bill pay days that come at bad times for when my money is coming in. And so I'm just like, why am I always behind? Why am I always going in the red? And then when I get paid next, when money comes in next, now I am trying to figure out how to catch up because I'm always behind. And so part of understanding your cash flow is not just about money in, money out on paper, but also that practical aspect of when is all of this happening and how do I rearrange? And now I've changed all of my bill pay dates. I've talked to, my automatic transfers, whatever it is, so that it matches more closely the flow of my income so that it all matches up. So cash flow is also just about paying attention to when it's coming in and when it's going out, as well as where you're getting the money and where the money is going.
That helped me a lot, Miranda. That makes a lot of sense. So basically a budget is just kind of like a snapshot of what your expenses and income were for the month, whereas managing cash flow means putting this in some kind of an order where it makes more sense. So it's easier for you to meet your obligations as they come due. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that Miranda explained that quite well.
Let's start doing this. How do we do this?
Awesome. Yeah. So the cash flow system starts with 6 steps, and you're looking at 1, calculate your cash flow. 2, it's analyzing that flow. 3, it's spending less of your money. 4, it's saving more of your income. 5 is automating your finances. And 6 is choosing your expense tracking app. These are the 6 steps to getting better with your monthly cash flow. And I can go over each one of these things very specifically.
Cool. But I really don't like step 3. Spend less money. I'm not real wild about that one, but maybe when we get there, I'll be picking up what you're putting down.
We'll
start
fix
with
it
step 1.
sometime.
Tell me what we need to know.
Yeah, well, spending less on the things that don't matter and spending more on the things that do. So that's
There
one
it
of
is.
the biggest caveat there.
Okay,
There it is.
but
We're
let's do step
gonna
1.
talk
Cal,
about value-based spending later. I'm excited.
There you go. Yeah. So the first step is calculating your cash flow number. And this is when people think about budgeting. They're looking at their income and their expenses, and they're trying to figure out how much money am I making and how much of it am I spending. That's when you want to calculate your cash flow number. This is the number, the most important number for someone who's trying to stay on track with their finances. And again, that is just taking your monthly income and your monthly expenses and getting to see what's left over, which leads to step 2, analyzing that flow. So are you making enough to cover your expenses, or do you have any left over? And or do you have money, you don't have enough money to cover those expenses? So then that leads to step 3, which is reducing, spending less of your money. So these are very simple steps, as I mentioned. So once you get to spending less of your money, because you realize that 1, you don't have enough to cover your existing expenses, or you are way over your head in terms of how you're spending your money and you're not on track to stick with the budget, then you want to look at spending less of that money.
I'd like to go back to analyzing cash flow. How do you start that process? Because I think for a lot of people, they feel lost in how do we, like, they're looking around and they're going, oh man, I know there's a problem. But how do you start taking a look at that and like pinpointing where those problems are? So I'd really like more information on step 2 real quick as to how do you get started in analyzing that cash flow?
Yeah, so this is really part of that step 1 process. So when people start with a budget, what they tend to think of is either following some kind of rule, whether it's a 50-30 rule or 80-20 rule, but they're not taking into account their actual lifestyle and their actual expense habits. And so when you're calculating your cash flow, you are getting a very detailed picture of how income is flowing in and how you're spending that income. And so once you've listed your income sources and you've listed all your monthly expenses, and then you do the math where you're subtracting your expenses to your income, then you can be left over with a number. Now, that number is either positive, negative, or it might be at 0, meaning that you are spending the amount of money you're making to your expenses, or you might be over or under. That's when you get into step 2 of analyzing and really looking at that number. So do you have money left over, or are you just on par with the income that you're making, or are you under? So it's important to really look at those numbers, because that will give you a very high level in terms of how you're managing your income. And for most people, they're really afraid of this step. So what they'll do is they'll create a budget, or they'll even go through the cash flow number system, the process, and it's an eye-opening to be able to see that their number is negative or positive or 0. And it really is just a matter of that income and expenses math there.
I got a question.
So,
I got a question.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, we got step 6 saying your expense tracking, and you guys are talking about the beginning steps of like analyzing your cash flow, your ins and outs. But wouldn't the number 6 and the beginning kind of be together? Because I know here when we're trying to track our expenses, it's a nightmare. I mean, we're even using a QuickBooks and stuff like that, and trying to find these little minute things that you're spending money on is kind of hard to just do it on pen and paper.
You're right. And so, but the process is with step 1 is that you might be looking at larger categories, and you might already be using some kind of expense tracking app. And what happens is that when you are doing the pen to paper, and so I'm not one, and in my book too, I don't talk about looking at every single expense that you have. We might look at broad categories as well. And that's how the vast majority of people think. And that's how the vast majority of people operate. And so what I want them to do is get an understanding of how they're spending. And there's something about inputting the numbers yourself. And why step 6 is choosing your expense tracking app is that once you go through this process of really mindfully managing your money, managing your cash flow, you do definitely want a tool. You want an app to help you make this process easier. But when you're going through the system, you want to make sure that you understand and you see for yourself how you're spending. And part of that pain might be going through the process of identifying these little expenses that you mentioned.
Okay, so for example, calculating your cash flow number, step 1. So I make $10,000 a month and I spend $7,000. My cash flow number is 3, right?
Correct.
Okay, step 2. Now I'm going to go, that $7,000 I'm spending, exactly where did I spend it? Is that what you mean by analyzing my cash flow?
Yes. So even part of the process of analyzing cash flow, you could see how you're spending your income, that $7,000, but then you can also look at what you can better do with the $3,000 that's left over. So that's part of the analyzing aspect of it. So you're looking at your flow, which includes your income and your expenses, which leads to step 3 and step 4.
Okay. And I facetiously said that step 3 was about spending less money, but what it really is tips for spending less money. Step 3,
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
What kind of stuff are you going to tell me?
For step 3?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm big on what Miranda talked about, value-based spending. I'm big on people spending their money on the things that truly value. And so part of the process is identifying those things. And so for me, I want people to look at their expenses, and then I want them to start highlighting the things that actually add value, make life easier, and also the things that bring convenience and joy into their lives. And the other process as well is really looking at eliminating the things that don't add value. And so that's when I talk about spending less of your money. It's spending less on the things that don't matter. And so you might like the convenience of having one of those food delivery services coming into your house because it takes away from having to go drive to the store, go shopping, and that's something you don't enjoy, and paying that monthly fee or whatever that subscription might be. That might be a worthy expense for you. But when you're cutting back, depending on how you've analyzed your cash flow, whether you're 3,000 positive or you're 3,000 negative, that's when you look at how do you spend less of your money. And there is 4 parts to this. Step 3, which is eliminate, negotiate, reduce, and consolidate. So you're going to go through your expenses and see what you can eliminate. You'll also look at potentially negotiating some of these subscriptions, some of the services that you may have that you want to keep, even maybe reducing some of your usage in order to lower the cost, and even looking at consolidating if a major part of your monthly expense is going towards debt repayment. And that's when you're looking at potentially consolidating credit cards or anything of those debt payoff tactics to reduce or to improve your cash flow.
What if shopping and gambling is what makes you happy?
Well, that's certainly something I can't talk about, but we'll definitely get you to 1-800-GAMBLERS to go speak with someone.
Well, you can you could budget for gambling. I mean,
Yeah, you totally
Yeah,
could.
I was
Yeah.
going to say that's like part of the entertainment budget for some people, right? Is it's when you start doing it in a way where you're hoping that that's how you're going to like make money rather than acknowledging that it's like a bad thing.
And Miranda, this is this tips for spending less money, or what is it? What did you just call it, Jason? Spending money in the way you want, value based.
Values-based spending.
Yeah, this is something that blows your skirt up. You talk about it all the time. Give me an example of something like that, Miranda.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, a really good example for me is so I love experiences and I love travel. And so last year I just spent a shit ton of money going all over the place. So I went to China and to Hawaii and all over and all sorts of places last year because I enjoy spending time. I enjoy spending money on travel. And so, but I don't really care about clothing and buying clothes. If you come look in my closet, I have like there's just not a lot there in my closet. It all fits in one little area because I don't really care about spending money on clothes because I want that money to be spent on travel. And I like having experiences with my friends. I love when my friends come visit me. I love being able to go places and see things and drag them around Idaho. And that's the kind of thing I like to spend my money on. And Jason is laughing because he'll come and visit and I'll drag him around Idaho.
And I love
I'm thinking we need to pause the show for a moment and go look at your closet. That's what you ask us to do.
I think it's so important too when we think about value-based spending is that, there's this idea of like what's better, stuff or experiences, and you'll see some studies and people talking about experiences trump stuff, and I'm certainly all for experiences versus stuff, but I also like nice things, so I do go for luxury goods. I do go from brand name things that are high quality, and for me, when I think about value-based spending, it is really spending less on the things that don't matter and spending more on the things that do. And so when someone tells me they love luxury vehicles or they want to live in a big house or they want the top of the line kitchen appliances, and that's because they're a cook or they love to drive or they just want to be in a safe, beautiful home, that makes them happy, and I'm all for that. And so that means if those are the things that matter to you, what can we do in terms of spending less on the things that don't? And so it can be experiences for me and Miranda, but for others, it could also be stuff. But I want people to be a bit more aware of how they're spending and spending less on the things that don't matter.
And actually being aware of what makes you happy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's right. We want to make our money and ourselves happy.
Yes.
Well, I think we should be focused on making me happy more than anyone
Let's
else.
do that. Let's do that.
Thank you, Jason. This is why you keep coming on this show, because you know exactly what to say. Okay, how about step 4? How to save more of your income?
So step 4, I want people to know that when we're saving money, we're saving it for future expenses, for future spending. And so I've met a lot of people who are afraid of spending, and you might be going, wait, how are people afraid of spending? It's because they have a specific mindset where they believe that money will just continue to flow in, or they don't have enough to save. And what I've learned is that when we're talking about monthly cash flow, when specifically on saving money, I want you to save purposefully. So that means saving with a plan, a purposeful savings plan. And that includes what I call the happy fund, right? So it's setting money aside for things that make you happy, things that make you well, and maybe things that people go, why are you spending on that? But you've allocated a portion of your income into this fund. It also includes what I call the opportunity fund. And the opportunity fund is really just a fancy way of saying emergency fund. I don't want people to think of emergencies in a way of like always that panic mode. So when I think of an opportunity, it is when we become unemployed or underemployed. The opportunity is that we get back or regain back our time. And if we have 6 months or 9 months worth of savings to cover our basic living expenses, then it becomes an opportunity to truly explore the things that make us happy. And so that's why I've switched that over to an opportunity fund, and also saving for our freedom. Being able to take off a year. So I took a sabbatical in the middle of my career, and that was available to me because I was able to save enough to cover 12 months of living expenses and some travel. And so setting up a freedom fund and also a cash reserve is part of this purposeful saving strategy. And a cash reserve for me, it's more of a very long term, and you're looking at anywhere up to 2 years of monthly living expenses in the event that there are crashes in the economy or the stock market is down and things like that. But these are the 4 main savings funds that I want people to start with. And certainly there are other savings goals that are important for people, whether it's buying their first car or buying a home or going to like an around the world trip or what have you. And those are things that I identify in the book, and it's important for people to understand, what's important to them and save specifically for those goals.
Now, when you say save specifically for these goals or these 4 different categories, are you actually have separate accounts for each one of these things, or just like a mental exercise?
No, I have specific accounts. So for me, I realized I belong to the group of people who had a hard time remembering what I was saving for. And so I would have one account and I would just keep saving and stashing money in there. But then when there was an emergency, let's say the furnace broke, I would tap into that emergency or that savings account, or I needed new tires, or I wanted a new pair of sneakers, or I wanted to go on the trip. I would just start tapping onto that savings, because that savings would grow because it was a catch-all for all my goals. And when I started getting serious about my personal finances and I wanted to reach a level of financial freedom, I wanted to make sure, and I realized I needed to set up separate savings goals for these specific purposes. So hence the purposeful savings. And I identified these 4 specific goals have helped me in my life. And I certainly have other smaller savings goals. As I mentioned, I have a travel fund, and I also have a Christmas holiday spending fund that keeps me on track. And I have it all in one account. I have it all under one membership, one account, but there are separate savings accounts for each of these goals.
No, I'm lost. It's under one account, but they're separate accounts?
Yeah, and I apologize for that, because when I talk about one account, it's a membership with a credit union. So I have one membership, and it's just and multiple savings accounts under that. And the great thing now is that a lot of financial institutions are offering you the opportunity to have multiple savings accounts and being able to title these accounts separately. So it's not just going to be savings account number 1, saving account number 2. You're able to title it specifically as the Happy Fund, the Opportunity Fund, or the Car Fund. And you're able to have all this under one online banking or one membership with a CU.
Yeah. And
Sounds
like,
cool.
yeah. So, and I don't know, just kind of side note where you're at with affiliates and whatever, but like Ally is one of those that allows that. So just.
Yeah, that's kind of. I was going to say it sounds cumbersome to have a bunch of different accounts, but when you put it that way, it does sound kind of cool.
Yeah. And they'll let you a lot of these places will let you automatically have like an automatic transfer into the account, and then it'll automatically split your automatic transfer into the different accounts that you do. Kind of like how if you do an automatic investment, you can split it up as well. I know that Betterment is another one that offers individual type accounts, and you can set it up to automatically split into different type, to assign it. So it makes it really easy to like automatically set aside this money each month and then split it. And like Jason, I also have a travel fund.
What's this is a really great segue into step 5, which is automating your finances, because I do not want to spend the vast majority of my time trying to manage my money. I want my money managed, so therefore I can live my life. And so part of this process, one, I'm really big on getting people to become more mindfully aware of how they're spending and how they can take control of their spending. And part of that is automating their finances. So I think that is really important, because like you say, I don't want to be there. It's a little too cumbersome. If I have 12 different savings accounts, how do I keep track of them? And so there are specific ways, and Miranda has also mentioned some of those automating features. So I don't want people going in there and on a monthly basis, weekly basis, or on a payday basis, shifting or transferring money into these accounts. You can certainly set up automation rules with these various financial institutions, and I think that's what's great. And if your current financial institution doesn't have those features, it might be a good time to start shopping around for one that does. And because we really want to make it easy on ourselves, I'm a big believer in having separate savings goals and also automating the ability to transfer into these goals each and every single payday, and being able to look at them under one dashboard or under one account. That makes things very easy, very simple.
Let me ask you guys a question, all of you guys. When and obviously we all believe in automation because we're all personal finance people, but what do you guys actually automate? I mean, obviously you take part of your paycheck and it goes into a savings account or multiple savings accounts in this case. But do you guys automate paying your water bill? Mortgage, I guess you could automate because it's the same thing every month and there's no arguing about it. But you wouldn't automate, for example, your credit card bill because you want to go over it before you agree to pay it, right?
Yeah, we don't automate anything because we're kind of, always wary that we're not getting, screwed over by these institutions, or something might have went wrong, or I mean, you never know. Nothing's perfect in this automation system.
You're absolutely right. There could be issues. And what I think is important when we're looking at automation, we all should start with automating our paycheck. And there's still a vast majority of people out there that I've spoken with. And this might be because I do a lot of in-person events and people share with me that they are not taking advantage of direct deposit. So that's one piece, like automating your paycheck to hit your account on payday, or in some places, some institutions are now doing offering you 2 days in advance. So now you're able to have access to cash in order to pay your bills on time. And I'm a big believer in automating your credit cards, minimum monthly payment. And I say the minimum monthly payment, it's because there are situations where there is an emergency or things happen and you might forget to make that payment. And at least having the automated monthly minimum set, you will avoid any late payment fees and potentially getting your credit card interest rates increasing because you miss that payment because of a situation. And I am also, just like you, Aaron, I go and I check my credit card statements because I do see charges that might be incorrect. I can see subscriptions that posted that I have canceled. And sometimes I've seen fees and on there. So yeah, I do recommend reviewing credit card statements to make sure that it is accurate. But certainly to give you more peace of mind, at the very least, automating the minimum monthly payment will prevent any future financial stress of a missed payment.
Interesting. That's a pretty cool idea too. I've never thought of. So basically, what you're saying is you're making two payments to your credit card every month. One's automated, the minimum, and the other is you're going to pay off your balance because you're that type of guy.
Yes.
And I think too, part of it is like, yeah, you can automate it, but it's also important to stay connected to your money. And so I do just like a really quick, once a week, I just sit down and do a quick survey of, hey, what's going on with my money this week? What's been going on? It takes me about half an hour, sometimes less, where I just kind of go through everything. What did I do? Is everything looking okay in my accounts? Is there anything I need to take care of real quick? Just to kind of stay that connection. And then once a month, I do like a bigger kind of money date where I do, I also automate my minimum payments for my credit cards, but I do this bigger money date where I look down and say, okay, well, it's time to pay off the balance. And I go boom, 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 boom. And I go through everything on this bigger money date. And I look ahead and try and see, okay, what's going on? What kinds of things do I need to cancel? What automated things have started creeping up on me that I'm not using anymore? And so I think it really is, a combination. But like Jason said, having it automated means you don't have to think about it all the time. And you can sit down and you can make adjustments. Like I'll make an adjustment. I'll say like, I've got some extra money, or I'm making more, or this isn't, going where I want it to be. So I think I'm going to adjust and increase. Like I just realized that I didn't increase my automatic contribution to my HSA to take advantage of the new limits this year. So I was like, oh crap. So when I had my big money date with myself last month, I was like, oh, let's increase the amount I'm putting in my HSA every month. And so it's just stuff like that where it's like, yes, you want it to be automated, but you also need to make sure you're not ignoring your money and you're remaining connected to your money.
I like that. And I think it's important too when to the point of expenses and automating expenses when it comes to utilities. So some people say, well, how do I know how much I need to pay with my water bill or my electricity or my gas? And there are, like, speaking with the utilities companies, you can set yourself up into a program where you pay fixed monthly payments each month, and that helps people budget, and as opposed to receiving, during the winter months, a $300-$400 heating bill that is spread throughout the year based on previous expenses. And of course, there will be some adjustments on there that also helps people who are looking to automate their utility expenses. But to Miranda's point, it's so important to remain connected, and that's why when you're looking at the cash flow process, it's not just a one and set piece. It lands itself to step number 6, which is choosing an expense tracking app, making it easier on yourself to be able to track those expenses and remaining connected. Because when you start seeing things that seem off target based on previous months, or you're seeing charges on there that you weren't expecting, and it's taking you off of your plan, then you need to go dive deeper. And I think that's why step 6 is important. And it's something that we can rely on to remain connected with our money.
Can I make one suggestion, Miranda? Don't call it a money date with yourself. I mean, because that just sounds kind of sad.
Why?
I mean, it's just depressing. You have
there
a
is
date with
nothing
yourself?
wrong with being single. I take myself out on dates all the time. I take myself to dinner. I take myself to the
But
movies.
you're having a date
like
with
to be
your
single.
money. I mean, that sounds like a Scrooge McDuck move to me.
At the end of the day, she wants to make sure that the money smiles.
That's right. That is
Well done,
right.
well
we are
done.
making our money smile.
Well done, Jason. Okay, so now the big question is, okay, we're on step 6, using an expense tracking app. Which one?
That is a good question, and I would leave that off to some of you. So for me, I love using the expense tracking app of my financial institution, and that has a lot to do with there was Mint, and that was something I'd used for years, and it's no longer available. And there are other services out there like Rocket Money that I've looked at, which is pretty good. And for me, what's worked is the expense tracking software that's already attached to my primary banking institution, and I'm able to also attach additional accounts in there. So it's not just my credit cards, my savings and checking within that financial institution. I could see everything under one roof. So I would recommend others to look at their financial institution and see if they offer an integrated personal finance management tool and expense tracking software as part of that banking relationship.
Cool. I don't do any of this. I don't do a budget. I don't use a tracking app. What I do is every month I have a spreadsheet, which I've kept for years, and I just compute my net worth every month. If it goes up, I'm happy. If it goes down, I'm not happy. And then I start looking for the reasons why. Generally, it's because the stock market went down that month because I have a lot of money in the stock market. Is that adequate?
It can be, based on where you are in your financial journey. So there are 5 numbers that I think
I'm nearing the end, Jason. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a white light either. I mean,
you still have many years, and so I think depending on our journey, that is a really great number, and I believe it's the number that people should track. So there are 5 financial numbers I believe people should look into, and the net worth number is the first number that I believe that people kind of not focus on, and number 2 would be cash flow. And so you're right on track in terms of if you have a great system that you've used for years to manage your money on a monthly basis, looking at your net worth only for you in your situation might be a great way. And that has a lot to do with just years of experience in managing your money. And so what I want people to understand as well is that when I talk about this 6-step system, it might be for those who are beginners or those who are in the middle of truly mastering their relationship with finances. These are these very simple steps to get you going, and eventually you'll be able to modify these steps to make it work for you. These are the steps that made me get better with money and help me achieve a level of financial independence. So I want people to start with these simple steps, modify them if necessary, and look at the numbers that are truly important, because one of the key things is that when you start analyzing your cash flow and you realize that you have $3,000 left over each and every single month, I want you then to start thinking about how do you invest that money in order to help build your net worth.
What's the name of your book again? Make sure everybody runs out and buys it.
Yep. The book is Make Your Money Smile, a personal finance how-to guide to manage, earn, grow, borrow, and protect your wealth.
Available on Amazon?
It's available wherever you go to get your books.
Cool. Well, I go to the library to get my books because I'm trying to keep my expenses down. Okay, folks, I'm afraid we're out of time, but we are never out of topic. Dig a little deeper. You got to find links to lots more info in our show notes. And remember, if your goal is to make more, to spend less, to retire rich, your online home is moneytalksnews.com. And don't forget to check out Miranda's online home as well. That's Miranda Marquardt, Marquardt. QUIT.com. And of course, you want to visit Jason at his website. This is a tough one. It's frugal, but it's spelled PHROOGAL.com. Right, Jason?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, it's going to be in our show notes, so folks have to remember. Okay, if you got a question, comment, or topic you'd like to suggest, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at hello@moneytalksnews.com. That's hello@moneytalksnews.com. And one last thing, remember, this isn't financial advice, so make sure to do your own research, consult your own experts before acting on anything you may hear on this podcast. Jason, thanks again for being here with us, buddy, again, and hopefully we'll have you back again soon. I'm Stacy Johnson.
I'm Miranda Marquette.
I'm Aaron Truman.
Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We're going to see you right here next time.